hour is. So before we get started, I do want to lay a few ground rules to keep this space respectful, open, and focused on learning. I want y'all to know that this class is designed for beginners. So everything will be explained in a clear, accessible way. The reason that I give that disclaimer is because I will use words like thought, aim, desire to explain metaphysical terms. I use layman terms in these classes so y'all can understand exactly what I'm talking about or what I'm saying. So layman terms in these classes so y'all can understand exactly what I'm talking about or what I'm saying. So I do welcome advanced questions, but I do ask that you honor the pace of the class in the room. This is based on my experience. Everything I'm sharing comes from my personal journey, my studies, my mentors, retreats I've been on, and my own research. Take what resonates with you and what doesn't, leave it where it is. Rule number 2, respect different perspectives. Everyone's spiritual path is unique. What works for one person may not work for another, and that's okay. This is a space for learning, not debating or invalidating somebody else's beliefs. 3, the most important rule, keep the chat positive and respectful. Disrespect, negativity, or trolling won't be tolerated at all. You will be kicked out of the live. And more than likely, they're going to send me your name and I'm going to block you. You'll never be able to see my page again. No debating. If you can't engage with an open mind, this may not be the space for you. Number 4, no unsolicited advice or corrections. Unless I ask for input, please allow me to teach without any interruptions or what people would consider corrections. If you have a different approach, that is beautiful. This class is centered around what works for me. The only exception to this rule is at the end of the class. You can tell me whatever you want to. You can argue with me all day. I'll debate with you all day, as long as you're not doing it while I'm teaching, because that's disrespectful to my space. And disrespectful to everybody who's actually trying to learn. Number 5, no gatekeeping or one right way of thinking. Spiritual work is diverse and traditions vary. Like I said, I believe that every single religion on this earth has some truth to it, but none of them are absolute truth. So, there's no one single correct way to do things, only what is true and effective for you. So if somebody says something in the chat that you don't like, just overlook it. Everybody has different beliefs. And the last rule is engage, learn, enjoy, ask questions, take notes, and be present. You may want to write down your questions as we go, because I will be pausing between each section to answer them. This is an interactive space for growth, understanding, and a deeper connection to the work. So I usually give something away every single live. And today I'm going to give away, I'm going to go get it. Hold on. So, if you don't know what, hey, there's another one of my moderators. If you don't know what fire quartz is, I will be giving away one of my handmade bracelets. The light, this room does not give this bracelet justice at all. And if somebody who is male wins this, I will redo the bracelet and take the wings off to make this more masculine. So let me know. The moderators usually pick who wins. But today I'm going to pick who wins, and if somebody masculine does win and you don't like this design, I can redo it, okay? But fire quartz is the perfect stone for return to sender. So if you're somebody who's going through like a phase of gossiping or somebody attacking you, always into it with somebody, this is the bracelet for you. So that's what I'm giving away tonight. Thank you. So, where is my, okay. I wish you could see the whole board, but you can't. So we're going to start over here. And it's an important message at the bottom. Spiritual work is not magic tricks. It's laws, universal laws, plus energy and intention. And intention are your thoughts. That's the main thing. Forgot to do my opening. Sorry. Fire quartz, yes. And another one is, if you ever come across fire agate, it's dope as well too. It's hard for me to find it, but that one is fire quartz. So before we start the class, I need y'all to hear me with your spirit. Your power is not in your pockets. Do I need to zoom in for the board? I forgot to ask you guys. Can y'all see this, or do I need to zoom in a little bit? You're welcome. I just, Melly, matter of fact, it's the girl, Jules. I just ordered, a necklace from her, the moon. Oh, you were on the live. Never mind. You saw it. But yeah, I have a fire quartz and fire agate necklace coming in. I'm excited to get it. Okay, you can see it. Okay, cool. So, your power is not in your pockets. It's in your authority. It's not in your assets. It's in your anointing. And it's not in your assets. It's in your anointing. And it's not measured by your relationship status or the size of your bank account. Let me move this up. Okay. Yeah, section 3, or the size of your bank account. Let me move this up. Okay. Yeah, section 3, I'm gonna move it because I like this two I'm gonna go over second because the board is so big. I only can show 2 at a time. Zoom in. Okay. That better? And if this is really little, this says law of mentalism. If y'all can't see what that says. You're welcome. Okay. So there is a lie creeping into the spiritual spaces, and I know y'all see it. Like, I don't even have to really tell y'all that. But it says that if you are struggling financially, you can't do money work. That if you're heartbroken, you can't do love work. That if you don't own a home or have material things, you can't do road opening work for yourself or anyone. That is a lie. And it's not from spirit. People who are truly connected to source and actually know how spiritual power works, we don't believe that at all. That lie is not from our ancestors, and it's not even biblical, which I'm going to show you for those of you who are. Keep in mind, I teach all different religions. I don't have a religion at all. I'm not a religious person at all, so I use examples from different religions. So if you don't like the Bible or biblical references, just overlook that. Hey, Lily in the Valley, welcome. Good to see you. So, where was I? Okay, we have to remember that we are humans first. Being a spiritualist does not remove you from the cycles of life as a human. We still face loss, we still face lack, we still face heartbreak, but none of that cancels out the ashe you carry, especially if you know the art of transmutation. You actually can use those things to fuel your spiritual power. Your spiritual authority is not proven by a picture perfect life. Don't let anybody ever tell y'all that. It is proven by your alignment with source, God, spirit, whatever you believe in, and your willingness to be a vessel, even when life doesn't look abundant. So even when you're going through it, you don't lose that connection to source. So tonight I want y'all to release the shame that has been placed on you for being human while doing this work. We are going to separate the performance of power from the reality of spirit. We're going to talk about what spiritual power actually feels like, what it looks like outside of money and material success, and why being rich in spirit is more valuable than being rich with possessions. By the end of this class, you will know that your gift doesn't vanish when your pockets are empty, your heart is hurting, or your path feels blocked. Spirit is not measured by what you own, which should be common sense, but it's not so common. Spirit is measured by your alignment, your intention, and ashe that flows through you. So, those of you who did download your class material and you want to follow along, we are on this page, what spiritual power actually is. Hey, Lene, the enforcer has arrived. So, you good? So, spiritual power, I just started. We're on the first section. So, spiritual power is one of the most understood concepts in today's metaphysical and spiritual spaces. Too often, it's mistaken for aesthetics, charisma for those who do glamour, for a skill set, or for results that can be seen and measured with the physical eye. But true spiritual power doesn't perform, it permeates. It's not about who talks the loudest or manifests the fastest. It's about who is the most aligned. It's about relationship. And most importantly, it's about being a vessel. Before we go deeper into the class, I want to dismantle every definition you've ever been given that equates power to material success or outer presentation, because power is not something you can actually fake, and it's not something that you can buy. It's not a brand, it's not a vibe, it's not a look. It's a actual spiritual current. It's kinetic energy, a divine flow that moves through those of us, which anybody can have spiritual power if you know what you're doing, who are willing to carry it with integrity. So I want to teach this like I'm building a foundation from scratch, okay? So erase everything that you think spiritual power is as we go through this class, because that's exactly what I want to do, is reconstruct your understanding of power in a world that has really taught us to chase proof instead of actual presence. So let's go deeper into the framework. Excuse me. I have a sore throat, so forgive me tonight, y'all. And I might have to go refill my tea in a minute. Okay, where was I? On the framework. Okay. I use when I talk about spiritual power, I'm talking about connection, skill, and manifestation. That is an actual formula, and it must be understood in that order. So connection, skill, manifestation. Because when you skip steps and rearrange them, we end up performing instead of actually embodying what power is. And that's what we're seeing now, an entire culture of people performing and disguising it as power. Just in case you don't know what a vessel is, because I've said that word twice. When I talk about being a vessel, just in case you don't know what a vessel is, because I've said that word twice. When I talk about being a vessel, I don't mean that you're a container waiting to be filled. I mean that you are a living, breathing source waiting to be filled. I mean that you are a living, breathing source of power. And you are in a relationship with other sources that actually extend beyond you. So when I say that, I'm talking about your ancestors, whatever you believe in. These energies walk with you. And being a vessel means you know how to hold your own ashe while also channeling what flows through them. If you work with spirits, especially if you are a conjurer, you are not powerless waiting for spirit to use you. You are powerful because you are in alignment with spirit itself, which is already in you. So being a vessel means You know how to merge your energy with divine energy. Y'all following me? It means you are grounded in your own source, but you also know when to step aside and let something greater come through you and work through you. So it's like you become a bridge, basically, between the physical, the spiritual, emotional, mental, so on and so forth. You're the channeler, the conductor, the translator between realms. You don't just work with energy. You're made of it. And that's actually what makes the most powerful practitioners dangerous, especially the ones that know what they have. That's what makes every last one of us sacred, that we have the ability to create because we are made in God's image. That's what makes all of us powerful. So I wanted to give y'all a breakdown of my formula. I've went over this formula in like 5 or 6 other classes. So if you've already heard my spiel on my formula that I created, so you can see the whole formula, it's work equals intention plus ashe plus activation. So this formula is the foundation of every spiritual working and every form of power that we carry. And keep in mind, what I'm telling you now is my theory that I built from scratch on why I think magic actually works. So please don't take anything I say as absolute truth. This is a theory. So your intention is your aim. Your ashe is the raw spiritual power. And that's spiritual power that's already inside of you, as well as the spirits or whatever you believe in that walk with you. It's the charge, the frequency, the force that actually comes from spirit, ancestors, and the divine, whatever divine force you believe in. And your activation is the alignment and the action that actually brings it into motion, which is kinetic energy, energy and motion. But just like this formula breaks down how a working actually operates, and when I say working, if you're a witch, you would call it a spell. Formula breaks down how a working actually operates, and when I say working, if you're a witch, you would call it a spell. If you were a spiritualist, you would call it manifestation. So you can follow what I'm saying. So this formula breaks down how a working, a manifestation, a spell actually operates. We can also use it to break down how power actually moves through your life. If you were in my other class, also use it to break down how power actually moves through your life. If you were in my other class, I told you how this formula actually can be used in every single religion on this earth. And I explained how. I don't have time to do that tonight, but I might do another class on that later. Okay. I lost my train of thought. Okay. So connection, skill, and manifestation each carry a version of this formula. And when we understand them fully, you'll stop making, I don't want to call them mistakes, but you'll stop mistaking outer success for inner alignment. Let's put it like that. You'll stop measuring your gift by how loud it looks and start measuring it about how deep it actually goes. So we're going to start with connection, because without it, everything falls apart. Because remember, I told y'all earlier that spiritual power is actual connection, skill, and then manifestation. You have to go in that order. So I'm going to break down this as if it's connection. So this will be, if y'all downloaded the class materials, all of these formulas that I'm about to go over are on this sheet. The very first, what is spiritual power? The first slide. If you want to go download this really quick, so you can follow along, you can. It's on my page and it's yellow. The flyer for this class is yellow, so you'll be able to easily find it. Hey, Jules. I just got through talking about you in the fire quartz and fire agate piece I ordered from you. She is a dope artist, so if y'all like crystal jewelry, hit her up. So connection is where everything begins. It's the root of your power, not because it gives you something. My bad, I forgot to turn this back around. Not because it gives you something you don't already have, but because it reminds you of what you actually are. Connection is your relationship with spirit, your ancestors, your higher self, your personal source of divine energy. And it has nothing to do with how much you know and everything to do about how you actually show up in the world. Do you actually do what they tell you, even if it's an inconvenience? Do you maintain your spiritual hygiene or offer up gratitude even when your prayers haven't been answered yet? Connection requires intention, but not just to get results. It's not a transactional intention, so to say. It's the kind that says, I want to be in the right relationship, even if I never get another blessing out of it. That's what connection actually is. It also requires integrity, your willingness to live your life in a way that honors your gifts, your guides, and your responsibilities. Keep in mind, I'm saying your, because we're not all here for the same reason. We're not all here to practice the same things. Some people do left-handed work, some people do right-handed work, some people do both. Like, we're not all here for the same thing. So I'm specifically saying integrity in your walk of life, because not everybody has the same moral code. Anyway, I had to throw that in there. It also calls for intimacy, which is, if y'all looking at the sheet, connection equals intention plus integrity plus intimacy, meaning you take the time to cultivate closeness. You pray, you meditate, you speak their names, you spend time on your altar even when you're not asking for anything. That's actual connection. And when your connection is strong, your ashe, your spirit, your energy flows clearer. Your direction becomes more aligned, your work becomes more effective, your energy flows clearer. Your direction becomes more aligned, your work becomes more effective, not because you learned something new, but because the line is open. So then we're going to go over skill, which is in the lower part of the printout. Skill equals knowledge plus ashe plus practice. So skill is your ability to understand and move energy. It's the knowledge you gain through study, practice, observation, experience. This is where the technique lives. So the herbal blends, the prayers, the altar work, the candle magic, the divination systems, the timing and planetary understandings, depending on what your walk is. Skill is important, but it is not the source of power. You can be a highly skilled practitioner and still be empty spiritually, okay? Have all the skills in the world and have no spiritual authority whatsoever. Thank you, Zay. That's why you can learn every recipe, you can memorize every psalm, you can burn every candle, but if you are not aligned, your work won't carry the same charge as somebody who is also in alignment. Hey, it will look right and feel wrong, because skill without connection is performance. I'm going to keep using that word, performance, because most of these people y'all are watching are performing. It's smoke without fire. It may impress people, but it won't move spirit. Like I said, skill is knowledge plus ashe plus practice. So skill is the part of power that people love to show off. It's the technique, the book knowledge, the memorization of rituals, the understanding of which herbs to mix, what psalms to pray when. It's the way that you handle your tools, your readings, your candles, your baths. And skill is important. Each thing I'm about to go over is just as important as the one before it. But skill by itself is not spiritual authority. You have to have all three of these things to actually have a command, a voice. It's not even spiritual power. Like skill, if we take away the other two things, if we take away manifestation and we take away connection, skill is nothing but craftsmanship. That's all it is. And if it's not backed by connection and alignment, then it's just a performance. So when I say skill equals knowledge plus ashe plus practice, I'm saying that knowledge is what you've studied or been taught, whether by spirit or by a teacher. Ashe is the power that you bring to that knowledge. That's the actual spiritual current, the energy, the kinetic energy that actually flows through your hands and your breath and your voice, whatever you use, depending on what type of practitioner you are. Hands and your breath and your voice, whatever you use, depending on what type of practitioner you are. Practice is how you sharpen the edge. So through ritual, through repetition, through lived experience. Skill is where you refine your tools, basically. But those tools don't replace power. They just carry it, okay? A lot of people think that the tools are how you focus the power. A knife is only dangerous if the hand that holds it knows what to do with it. A prayer is only powerful if it is charged with the intention of spirit. Your skill is the structure, but not the actual source. Without ashe and connection, skill becomes empty repetition. You're just repeating the same thing over and over again. Okay. I forgot to turn my notifications off. If my screen freezes, sorry. Where was I? So you can have all the tools and no charge at all. That's why some people can do everything right and still get no results. Something is wrong with your spiritual authority. Something is blocked. Because something is wrong with your spiritual authority. Something is blocked. Because you're working from a technique that's not in alignment. So when we get to manifestation, which is in this corner of the sheet, for those of you who did download your class materials, manifestation is alignment plus timing plus permission. So when we talk about manifestation, this is where a lot of people get tripped up because of how popular manifestation became. It became a trend, basically. Manifestation is the fruit of your labor. It's the result of energy being moved in a way that brings about change. Manifestation is not proof of your power, okay? It's the result of your power. It is simply a consequence of energy. And a lot of people think that consequence means something bad, but consequence literally, if you go look up the definition, it just means result. So if you see me say consequence, I'm not talking about something negative. I'm talking about the actual definition in the dictionary. So it's a consequence of energy flowing in alignment with a specific intention. And not all manifestations are spiritual. Not all results are sacred. Just because something worked doesn't mean that it was right. I do want to put that in there. And just because something didn't manifest doesn't mean that you lack power. Sometimes spirit delays a result to protect you from something. And you will eventually realize what that is later on down the line, I promise you. Sometimes your ancestors reroute the outcome because they see something that's ahead that you can't see because you're living in the physical. They see something that's ahead that you can't see because you're living in the physical. And sometimes the thing that you think you want is not actually aligned with your path, and so you won't get it at all. A lot of people think you're powerful just because you're in alignment, that you can get whatever you want in this world. But if it does not align with your actual path on this earth, you're not going to get it. That's why it's important to do divination before you even waste your energy doing work. If you don't know how to divine, go to somebody who do divination before you even waste your energy doing work. If you don't know how to divine, go to somebody who does and ask them, if this is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this what I actually need? And then when you get that divination, actually listen to it, because we have a bad habit, including myself. I'll get a reading from my elder and not follow nothing that she told me to do. And I always have a consequence for that every single time she's right. That's why we actually don't measure spiritual authority by manifestation. Right. That's why we actually don't measure spiritual authority by manifestation alone. You can't measure your spiritual power with what is manifested in the physical, because sometimes you can manifest all day and you'll never get it, no matter how powerful you are. Manifestation is always filtered through divine timing, through unseen protection, and through karmic balance. And when I say karmic, I'm not talking about what I'm talking about the law of cause and effect specifically. I'm not talking about the actual belief system or the actual religion of karma. So remember that. Spirit doesn't operate on demand. And if you think power means instant results, you will end up questioning your gifts every time you use it. Every single time. You end up doubting yourself because you're not getting what you're asking for, because you never divined to see if you were actually supposed to get it in the first place. And that's why I say a lot of people are confused about what manifestation actually is. Manifestation is the physical outcome of the work when something actually shows up. So when that money hits your account, when that job comes through, when that lover, put that spell on, come back, when that case gets dismissed for those of us who do justice work, that's what manifestation is. And because it's visible, people assume that it's proof, but it's not proof, it's a result. But manifestation is not proof of power. I want to keep saying that. It's evidence that something was moved. But what moved it and why it arrived is a whole different conversation. So, just to reiterate, manifestation happens when you're in alignment with what you're asking for. It arrives in the right timing, and Spirit has granted permission for it to come into form. That permission may come from your ancestors, from your higher self, from your deities. It always depends on form. That permission may come from your ancestors, from your higher self, from your deities. It always depends on what spiritual path you're actually walking. And for me, it would come from the natural laws that's governing my situation, because I'm more of a metaphysicist and a spiritualist than I am a magical practitioner. And if any one of these pieces aren't in place, if your alignment is off, if your timing isn't ready, or if the permission hasn't been granted, it won't manifest, no matter how skilled or connected you are. That doesn't mean that you're not powerful, though. It means that there are other laws at work, laws that move beyond your personal will, because no matter what we think the spiritual world is, we actually do not know. Some of the stuff that happens in the spiritual world is beyond our comprehension. And we're not going to ever know everything. That's why we're living this experience in the first place. There are people who are manifesting constantly, but that's not from spiritual power. Some of it's from manipulation. Some of them lie to you and act like they do. It could be from an ancestral debt. It could be from an energetic force. Just because something appears doesn't mean that it was aligned. Just because a door opens doesn't mean that it was a blessing. That's why you do divination. That's why we stay in relationship, because real power is not just about creating outcomes. It's about creating outcomes that are in integrity with the divine plan for your life and the lives of those you actually serve, for those of you who do practice for other people. And this is where a lot of people stop. Once that thing is manifested, a lot of people just stop at that step. They think that because something showed up that the work is done. But what I want y'all to understand that is getting a result and carrying authority are not the same thing. You can manifest and still be out of alignment. You can produce outcomes and still be disconnected from the source of power. That's why we need to actually talk about spiritual authority as well, because authority is what holds everything together. It's what gives weight to your words. So once that manifestation actually happens, whatever spirit, if it's your higher self, whatever, make sure you show gratitude. It's not just about getting things to happen. It's about who you are and who has done it for you or what has done it for you. It goes deeper than that. And when we get to spiritual authority, which is the last corner of the sheet, spiritual authority equals connection plus integrity and consistency. I did a video about spiritual authority not too long ago. If y'all want to go watch it, it is on my page. It goes really, really deep into spiritual authority, more than I am about to go now, because I don't want this class to be too long. But spiritual authority is what you carry when your connection to spirit is actually real. Your integrity is intact, and your life, both public and private, because a lot of people not living how y'all think they living, matches what you teach. Authority doesn't come from a platform. It comes from presence. If it's not something you claim for yourself, it's something that is confirmed about you and the way that your spirit moves, by the way that your ashe actually lands, by the way that spirit, your ancestors, whatever you believe in, and your results all testify in agreement. Spiritual authority is not earned through perfection. It's earned through alignment. Y'all gonna hear me say alignment a lot, and you're gonna hear me say performance a lot during this class. It's a spiritual signature. It says that this one can be trusted to. It says that this one can be trusted to do this work. This is when your ancestors actually trust you enough to give you that extra authority. When I say spiritual authority equals connection, integrity, and consistency, I'm talking about the weight that you carry when all three of those things are in place. Your connection is your source. It's your lifeline to the divine, your ancestors and your guides. Your integrity is your devotion to your right relationship with your path that you are on. It's how you show up when nobody else is watching. It's how you treat people when you're not performing. And your consistency is the part that people really don't see. It's the part where you keep doing the work, keep tending to your altar, keep checking in on yourself, taking care of yourself, doing your spiritual hygiene. Powerful. Authority is not a moment, it's actual lifestyle. And it's built over time. It's actual lifestyle. And it's built over time. You don't get authority immediately. And you don't have to announce your authority either. People feel it. Spirit confirms it. Doors start to open for you. Energies move in response to it. And it doesn't always come with popularity. Spirit confirms it. Doors start to open for you. Energies move in response to it. And it doesn't always come with popularity or praise. Maybe you are not meant to be popular. Sometimes it comes with isolation and responsibility. But when you carry a real spiritual authority, you don't have to force outcomes. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to beg people to see your gifts. Your gifts make room for you, because it comes from a source much greater than human approval. That's what separates the ones who perform from the ones who are chosen. One is working to be seen, the other is working to stay aligned. So what is spiritual authority? Because I just said a lot of shit. It is the actual energy of being a That's what it is. It is the invisible current of energy, the kinetic energy that you carry because you are consistent, obedient to your path. Keep in mind, everybody's path is different. Prayerful and aligned. Authority doesn't come from how many spells you do, how many products you sell, how many people follow you. Come from how many spells you do, how many products you sell, how many people follow you. It comes from how clearly spirit can actually move through you because you are a vessel. It comes from whether or not you are listening when spirit speaks. And when I say spirit, I'm talking about whatever y'all believe in. I just call it spirit. And whether or not you actually act when spirit moves. So when your ancestors tell you to do something, are you doing it? When God, if you believe in God, tells you to do something, are you doing it? So it depends on what you believe in. It comes from whether or not you are actually listening. Spiritual authority is not loud. It's not flashy. It doesn't always actually listening. Spiritual authority is not loud. It's not flashy. It doesn't always manifest as confidence. Sometimes it shows up as humility and stillness, isolation, as being able to hold space for somebody else's breakthrough without needing to be seen. That is what it means to carry real power. You don't ever have to say anything. People know, they feel when you walk into the room. On the other hand, you have performance. And performance is what much of the community is mistaking for spiritual power. Performance is an aesthetic without any fucking substance. It's the language of spirit with no relationship with it. Yeah, you talking like you spiritual, but you can't see that anointing on that person. It's a candle done for clout. It's divination done to be right, or divination to make money, because a lot of practitioners will divine on you and tell you that you need something you don't need just to get some more money out of you. It's ancestral veneration turned into a brand. And unfortunately, this performance is actually thriving because we live in a system that has turned capitalism into a religion. We've been trained to look at visibility and wealth as signs of anointing. We've been taught to believe that if someone has a large following, a beautiful altar, and a life that looks abundant, they must be spiritually powerful. And that's not true. That is not spirit. That is not spiritual authority. That's marketing. They have good marketing. They're smart business owners. That's branding. That's hustle culture. Wearing a head wrap and some fucking beads that they didn't get initiated for. Spiritual power is not for sale. It can't be packaged. It can't be mass produced. You either carry it or you don't. You either walk with spirit or you perform for people. And at the end of the day, I know I'm preaching, y'all, but it really pisses me off when I see the shit. Only one of those paths will sustain you when your money runs low. Because if you ain't got no spiritual power and you pretending and you living a life that you don't even you can't actually afford, I might be broke right now and you might be rich right now, but if both of us is broke, guess who spirit gonna help out? Guess who gonna find $20 right when they need it? I am. You gonna have to go ask your mama for help, but spirit gonna take care of me. So I want to say this clearly. Your spiritual power is not proven by how much you've manifested. It's not proven about how your life looks. It's not proven about how deep you're rooted in spirit. It is proven by how deep you're rooted in spirit. My bad, y'all. And that kind of power, that's the kind of power that doesn't have to perform. It doesn't have to brag. It doesn't rush. It doesn't chase. It remains. It endures. And when everything else falls away, it's what carries you. But that is section 2. So I want to go over this real quick, and then we'll move to section, because I wanted y'all to understand how magic actually works, or spiritual power actually works, whatever you want to call it. Let me find my or spiritual power actually works, whatever you want to call it. Let me find my where is it? Oh, I found it. Anybody have any questions? Maintain it. Practice and repetition. Creating a life. Practice and repetition. Creating a lifestyle. Creating a plan. Not just going to your altar when you need something. And you don't have to be in isolation to carry spiritual power. Some people thrive in isolation, but some people thrive when they have others around them. So you have to figure out what is in alignment with your spiritual path. Get a reading, and have someone tell you if you don't do readings on yourself. Hey, Brittany. If you don't do readings on yourself, you can get somebody to divine for you and find out how do you thrive, but you should be able to feel it. Is Ashe something that can be cultivated, or is it considered to be fixed? It's cultivated. And Ashe is the same thing as soul. It's the soul that you were born with. You can strengthen it or you can weaken it, depending on how you living. Yeah, those are actually good questions. Usually I have to pull y'all teeth to get a question out of you. You welcome, boo. Any more questions before I start explaining work equals intention plus Ashe plus activation? The flame within us? Yes, exactly. A lot of people call it the flame. A lot of people call it the source. A lot of people call it Ashe. They call it Chi. Well, you can actually look right here. I actually have it on the board. You can call it spiritual power. You can call it vital energy, divine current, life force. It's the power. And the law of vibration, everything has a frequency. Everybody's Ashe vibrates at a certain frequency. The law of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. Your inner must match your outer. Microcosm versus microcosm versus macrocosm. So depending on what your belief system is, what you would call the law of correspondence. Like if you're a witch, you'll say as below, as within, so without, as above, so below. So, let's go back to this. I keep accidentally almost ending the live. Let me go back. Okay. So, but inner humor self. You gonna book a one-on-one? Yes, it is mentioned in there, Jose, but that's a universal law that existed before the Kabbalion. however you say it. But yes, you can find it in Hermetism. You can also find it in Jewish mysticism as well. So, work equals intention plus ashe plus activation. This is a formula that I actually created from scratch. This formula is your spiritual framework for how energy becomes transformation, or how magic works, how manifestation works, how spells work, whatever you want to call it. It can be used across any type of class: spiritual, metaphysical, energetic, ancestral, like I showed y'all before in another class. And it translates well into different languages and beliefs. So the full breakdown is like work is the law of cause and effect. This is the actual outcome. So this is the manifestation. This is what you created, the output, the results, the consequence, whatever you want to call it. Work is not just an effort. It's the visible manifestation of your inner alignment. It is what gets done and what gets produced through spirit. It's the effect of everything that came before it. So your intention, your ashe, your action. That's why work is the evidence of transformation, not the start of it. It's the fruit of your labor. Intention is the law of mentalism. Let me, so y'all can really see it. Let me zoom in just a little bit more, if I can get it to work. My bad, it's hard with these nails, y'all. Okay. I keep pushing shit that I'm not trying to push. Okay. Okay. So, intention is the seed. It's the conscious thought, the prayer, the desire, or the aim behind what you're actually doing. Without it, the work is actually hollow. So, intention gives direction to your energy. Did I put that on there? Oh, yeah, I did. So, direction of energy. The law of mentalism tells. Oh, yeah, I did. So, direction of energy. The law of mentalism tells you that everything begins in your mind. Every I've ever seen you in my live before. Then ashe, I'm just going through what they are, is the life force that makes your intention move. It's what makes it move. It's the breath of God, the divine, your ancestors, whatever you believe in, the vibration of possibility. The law of vibration tells you that everything is energy. That's all it is. Everything has a frequency. Everything is always moving particles. Your ashe carries your spiritual frequency. The law of correspondence explains why what's in you reflects what shows up around you. As above, so below, as within, so without. So that's your spiritual power. Activation is the law of action and the law of cause and effect. Activation is a moment your intention and ashe are put into motion. This can be a ritual, a movement, if you dance, speech, offering, a prayer, or even obedience to divine instruction. The law of action teaches you must move. The law of cause and effect reinforces that every action causes a ripple. So that's why activation is the law of cause and effect, and work is the law of cause and effect, but it's two different parts of that law. Activation is the moment where possibility actually becomes a reality, because you're using kinetic energy to actually push your thoughts forward, push your spirit forward. So your ashe is your energy, and your activation is your energy in motion. And then I built this. I did another, yes, invocation equals prayer. I built this formula around the power of three. If you've never heard of the power of three, I told y'all I'm obsessed with the number three. I actually taught the power of three in another class on live. but it's a spiritual law and energetic pattern found in almost every single belief system on this earth. It teaches that creation happens through the interaction of three distinct forces: a beginning, a middle, and an end. A thought, energy, and action. Get it? Thought, energy, action. It represents balance, completion, and manifestation. You see it when Christians say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. When spiritualists say mind, body, and spirit. Thought, word, deed, past, present, future, birth, life, death, creator, creation, created, ask, believe, receive. Y'all see how almost everything we believe in comes in threes. Three is a complete cycle. It's enough to initiate, sustain, and complete an energetic processes or universal forces using three-part structures. Saying something 3 times, using candles 3 times, doing a ritual in 3 stages. You're anchoring your work in cosmic balance and divine law. Even transmutation happens in threes. You feel it, which is awareness. You process it, intentional engagement. Then you transform it, which is the new frequency and the new action that you made. And I'll be teaching that tomorrow. Transmutation tomorrow at 7 p.m. Live on TikTok. So, if y'all don't notice, when I teach, there's certain things that I tell y'all 3 times. I'll say it 3 times so you can get it. I always use 3 points of focus. And it's not because I'm superstitious. It's because I believe in the law of the power of 3. The universe listens in threes. It's a divine rhythm built into everything from atoms to rituals to affirmations. And I know y'all have heard of the 369 method. That came from the law of the power of 3. It was nothing new. It wasn't something that a metaphysicist created. That's an actual divine law that's existed since the beginning of humanity. But I just wanted to give y'all an overview. So if you can remember this formula, and you actually have an intention. So you start with a thought, use your spiritual power, create a ritual and actually perform it, and you can create. And you can create. So does anybody have any questions before we move to 3? Or did anybody want to take a picture of this board? Because I just added this, so it's not in your, what do you call it? Notes, your class materials. And if y'all want, I can go ahead and teach that class again, how magic works. I think that's what the class is called. And I can teach you in depth this formula as well as the power of 3. You're welcome. Did you need this side too? I got you, Carmel. Okay, well, the next class I'll do that class again, the power of 3, as well as my formula of how magic works. Hey, little bro. My little brother just came in. If y'all didn't know, I have a lot of siblings. Every live, at least one of them come in. It's a lot of us. And every last one of us are woke as fuck, too. Thank you so much, Jen. I'll have to do that one again. I'm an elemental girl, as you can see by my natural aesthetic. I love nature and elements. That's where I thrive. Yes, I'm glad I have a lot of siblings as well. All right, so I gave y'all enough time to take a picture of this. I'm finna move on. Ignore my little mess back there. I've been asleep all day, I told y'all. Literally got out of bed to do this class. Uh-oh. Oh, you're the baby. Okay, I got you, cuz. Are you talking about the class? Actually, a lot of my family members be in here, because that's my cousin. Let me see. And if we have time, I'm going to go over some more of the books from yesterday, because I didn't get to go through all of them. So I did leave this out so I can go through some more if y'all want me to. It's up to y'all. You're the baby of 7 siblings. How many siblings I have? Let me see. I don't even, let me count. I believe it's 10 of us, but I'm not sure. And ain't no telling. My stepdad, he might be on this live, so let me stop, because my stepdad be in my lives too, so let me be quiet. I think it's at least 10 or 11 of us. And my stepdad woke too. My mom woke. Let me see, please. At the beginning, how did you say the manifestation is different if you're doing work for somebody? I didn't say it was different if you're doing work for somebody. I remember saying it's important, especially if you are doing work for somebody. Which part are you talking about? Let me go back. Because I think I know what you're talking about. Oh, I remember. Okay. It was when I was saying that your outcomes of manifestation, if they're in integrity and in your divine plan for your life, as well as for those who live, as well as the lives of those you serve. I got tongue twisted, my bad. But I was basically saying when you move in integrity in whatever your walk of life you are in, and it's actually part of your divine plan. But if you are a practitioner who helps other people, make sure that it's in the divine plan for those you serve as well, because your divine plan might not be the same as the people that you're serving. So you have to find out what their integrity is, what their divine path is, their spiritual path, if you are a talented divinationist or whatever. You don't have a big family? What did my little sister say? Oh yeah, she is the baby. And she got so spoiled. That's why she the worst out of all of us. The worst attitude, will beat you up for no little to nothing. I remember one time when my sister was in elementary school, a girl wouldn't let her borrow a pencil, so she just got up and went and slapped her. And I was like, why did you slap that girl? She said she wouldn't let me borrow her pencil. You have a reason. You have to have a reason now? Okay. And she's an Aries too, so you know how that go. So we're gonna move into section 3. But I'm just playing. She's not as bad as she used to be. But she can get there if you try her. So as you can see, I didn't put much on this board. But this is where we are. We are on this page. Uh-oh. I have my fan on me, so it's blowing my paper. The human experience of spiritualists. That's what section we're on now if you are following along with the class material. She's innocent. Y'all have no idea. So, one of the biggest lies in the spiritual community, and the spiritual community has actually swallowed, especially in this age of online visibility and performance. I told you I'm going to say that word a lot in this class. Is the belief that spiritual practitioners, once awakened or elevated, are somehow exempt from suffering. That's not true. That once your candles, you light candles, work your altar, connect to spirit, and start doing the work, your life will become smooth. You'll be rich, love-filled, and unshakable. But that is not only untrue, it's actually a dangerous belief to have. Because when struggles do show up, many of the people who actually believe that begin to question their gift, their power, their alignment, or even worse, they start questioning how much they're actually worth. But the truth is that doesn't get posted, actually. Being spiritually gifted does not mean you will avoid the cycles of human life. It means that you are going to be prepared for it. You're going to be able to easily navigate through it, but it doesn't exempt you from suffering. As a spiritualist, you are not removed from human experiences. At the end of the day, all of us are human. I don't care how much spiritual power you have, you're still human. You feel deeply, you carry more when you become spiritually enlightened. You're usually more sensitive, you're more aware, more energetically attuned, and because of that, you don't get to bypass heartbreak. Sometimes it actually is worse. Grief, illness, betrayal, financial struggle, or even loneliness, but you just gotta learn how to transmute that energy into something else. And that's what I'm teaching tomorrow. And this is unfortunately the truth, most people who are spiritually powerful walk through more loss and more challenge than anybody else. Not because spirit is punishing them either. It's because those experiences actually fortify your ashe. They refine your calling. They give you a deeper authority. Lived experiences is what actually gives your gift weight, because you done been through so much that you know how to help the next person who's going through it too. It's hard to help somebody if you don't know what they're actually going through, because you've never been there. Going through things is what really makes your presence healing, your words powerful, and your divinations accurate. And there's no shortcut around it, no matter what a spiritualist tells you. Being spiritual does not exempt you from the human experience. And I do want to break this down into universal law. We're going to start with the law of rhythm. I didn't put those up there, but I believe they're on the sheet. Teaches us that all things move in cycles, just like the moon, just like the seasons, just like the tides. There are ebbs and flows, highs and lows. And no matter how spiritually high you feel today, that pendulum will swing again, unfortunately. That doesn't mean that you've done something wrong. I want to keep I want y'all to keep that in mind. Just because you're going through something, it doesn't always mean that you did something wrong. It's just, it might be something that you have to go through in order to learn a lesson, because something else greater is about to come, and you need that lesson in order to accept that greatness that's on its way to you. If everything is energy and energy moves in waves, then it is natural, even necessary, for your life to reflect that movement. So when your relationships go through a shift, when your money slows down, when grief really hits you, or when isolation comes, it's not always an attack. Sometimes it's the law of rhythm. And rhythm is not here to destroy you, it's actually here to give you balance. And then that's when you get to the law of polarity, which it basically means everything contains its opposite. I wish I would have, let me see. So love, let's use love and hate as an example. And I'll just make a little thing right here. This is love, this is hate. Love and hate are actually the same frequency going in different directions. That's the law of polarity. It's the exact same frequency. So even if love is right here, there's still a little bit of hate in it. One cannot exist without the other. That is the law of polarity. Two things that are the same frequency going in different directions. Just in case you didn't know what it was. Oh crap. Hold on, drop my stuff. Okay. So it basically means that every single state contains an opposite. Light holds a shadow. Joy is deepened by sorrow. Success becomes meaningful because you've known failure. The law actually really teaches us that struggle is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of contrast. You cannot carry compassion if you've never suffered. You cannot minister to someone's heartbreak if you've never actually had to rebuild your own heart. Polarity is what creates the depth of your spiritual walk. And when you resist it, when you run from lack or shame or sadness or pretend your practice is perfect, you lose the lesson that was trying to deepen you in the first place. It goes right over your head. Some of the most powerful ashe will be born out of your darkest moments, your darkest seasons. Some of your clearest messages will come when you are broken open. Your spiritual authority is not determined by how perfect your life looks. It's built in the wilderness. Just like Moses, if you know the story of Moses. So that's why even prophets, saints, healers, diviners across every single tradition have stories of suffering. Like every tradition that you go through. The wilderness didn't disqualify them. It actually prepared them. So don't let struggle make you think that your power has left you. That's the most important thing that I want y'all to remember about this class. More often than not, it's actually refining your spiritual power. Being human doesn't make you less spiritual. It makes you more qualified to do this work. Because the spiritual work is not about escaping life. It's about engaging in it, because at the end of the day, you're still human. You're here for a purpose, to live in this human experience. If your life was perfect, you would never learn anything. You would never experience anything but perfection. Sounds pretty boring to me. True spiritual work is not about escaping your life. It's about engaging it, meeting it, being present with it, and transforming it one moment at a time, with your wisdom, your rituals, your ashe, your soul, your grace, with God, with your ancestors, whatever you believe in. So when you're walking through a storm, don't ask what's wrong with me. Ask what is spirit building within me. What is the lesson that I'm supposed to learn from this? When your prayers aren't being answered the way that you want them to be answered, ask what is this season teaching me about surrender, about rhythm, about trust, whatever you're going through. And when you feel like your power is silent, just remember that Ashe is not loud. Your spiritual power is not loud. I told you, spiritual power is when you walk in a room and people feel and see your power without you ever even opening your mouth. That is what spiritual authority looks like. I'm going to go into the hoodoo case study. I don't know if you can see it. See it. To really understand what spiritual power, I'm not going to really be teaching. Basically, I'm about to go over a short version of what I went over yesterday to show you how our ancestors didn't have anything, but they were more powerful than the people who were oppressing them spiritually. It would look like that the oppressor was on top, but they had no spiritual power whatsoever. They weren't in alignment. So that is the purpose of me using hoodoo. And then the purpose of me using biblical case studies is because I want to show you how some of the most powerful people in the Bible didn't have anything. So we're going to go over hoodoo first, and then we're going to move to the biblical case study that I put together. And the reason I'm really using hoodoo is because that's where power has always been for African Americans. For us, hoodoo was that place. It was not just a tradition, it was a testimony of what our ancestors went through. It is actually living proof that spiritual power is not dependent on wealth, access, or performance. It's what carried our ancestors through captivity. It's what kept our bloodlines alive. It's what kept our belief system alive. What sustained our people spiritually when the world tried to extinguish their spiritual beliefs. Hoodoo was never built in temples or sold in stores. It was birthed in dirt, in hands, in the hush of backwoods prayers, in the swamps, whispered names over boiling pots and poisons. And when we study its history, not from textbooks, but from the hands of our elders and the memory of our people, we begin to see the truth that power has never lived in appearance. It's always lived in presence. And then when we get to the enslavement era of hoodoo, in the earliest days, our ancestors who were captive on stolen land, there were no altars made of marble. There were no candles. There were no metaphysical bookstores. There was only earth and spirit and community, really. They made everything. They made their pots from red clay. They used river water. They crushed their own cornmeal, found their own bitter herbs to cleanse. They did what they needed to do to survive. Hoodoo in this era was raw. It was survival work, born out of the urgent need to protect, heal, resist, and endure. Our ancestors didn't have access to grand rituals or public ceremonies, but they had spirit and they knew how to listen to them. Much of what we call spiritual power today would have been unrecognizable to them. They didn't measure results by followers, aesthetics, or even how fast something manifested. They measured it by survival. If a child lived, if their master grew sick from the poison, if dogs didn't bite, if the hidden root did its job, High John the Conqueror, that was proof of power. They used dirt because it held memory. They spat prayers into their palms. If you are familiar with hoodoo, they whispered psalms with African tongues, reshaping them into freedom songs. And they worked with their hands. They worked with what they had because what they had was already sacred, because they are the spiritual power. They are the vessel. They're the ones who were carrying the power. The ashe was in their hands. It didn't come from outside validation. It came from a divine relationship with the spirits that they created and the ones that they brought over from Africa. They had to trust that their spirit guides would speak to them through dreams to show up in the rustle of trees and the way a bird flew overhead. If you're familiar with the superstition of blackbirds, they even had it in the movie Sinners, the three blackbirds that were on the house when the vampire first entered the scene. The very first scene that he was actually in when he was running from the Choctaw. If you pay attention in the movie, there are three blackbirds on top of the house after it cuts back to the house. That is a known hoodoo omen of death is coming. That's what that means. So they use things like that. Every detail was a message. Every shadow was a teacher. They didn't have time for performance. That work had to be real or it could cost them their life. Yeah, that movie was good. It was, yeah. That's one of my all-time favorite movies I have ever watched, and that's saying a lot. But it was good. So when we get to post-emancipation, this is the blend of hoodoo and Christianity. After emancipation, freedom was not freedom in full. It was survival in a new container, basically. So the blending of hoodoo and Christianity became a survival strategy, not a contradiction. In fact, many formerly enslaved Africans took what was given to them, the Bible, the church, the language of the colonizer, and they actually flipped it against them. They hid their workings in plain sight. A glass of water on the table became an altar. Psalms became spells. They didn't have pictures. They didn't have candles. All they had was a glass of water. Hey, Hidden Gem. The black church became both a sanctuary and a strategy. And while this fusion has often been misunderstood and criticized by those outside of the tradition, it was deeply intentional. It allowed our people to move under the radar and to keep their ancestral practices alive without the violence of consequences of being caught. Books like Working the Roots that I went over yesterday help us understand that this phase of hoodoo was one of the greatest adaptations. The practitioners of this era had to hold two worlds together. Do you know how hard that is, to encode somebody else's belief system with yours? How smart you have to be to do something like that? They didn't charge, where was I at? Because I had went on a tangent. But anyway, so then we're going to move to community healing. And this is the hoodoo economy around this time. As black communities began to build their towns around this time, and they basically created these networks of mutual aid and businesses, similar to how they used to live in Bible times. You know, Israel, the real Israel, before it was taken over, they used to be a agricultural society, so they actually traded in animals and goods. That's similar to how black communities were working back then. So they created mutual aid networks and businesses, and that's something that we actually need to start doing right now. So it actually created a new form of hoodoo, one that is still that was still deeply rooted in spirit at this time, but now was actually organized for collective support. And this is when the principle of community actually was integrated deeply into the hoodoo economy of that time. At this time, they didn't charge hundreds of dollars for their work because their payment was often in eggs. Chickens was another thing that they used to trade all the time. Cornmeal, work on the farm. The work wasn't actually transactional. It wasn't really with money. It was reciprocal. So the law of reciprocity was basically a big thing in the hoodoo economy around this time. You helped because you were called to help. You healed because you could. Y'all wouldn't believe how many people have inboxed me and basically, without actually saying the words, but calling me stupid for teaching y'all for free. Basically said I was hindering myself by doing that. That's capitalism mindset. Like, who are you to tell me? I'm telling you that I had a dream that God wanted me to. I believe in God, so I will say God wanted me to teach this because somebody on my live needed to hear it. Who are you to tell me to go against what God and my ancestors told me to do because you think I should be making money? And that's what we're going to really, this is really what this class is about, how they turn capitalism into a religion. Many of these elders, some who lived well into the 20th century, saw their practices not as business ventures, but as spiritual assignments. And their ashe was potent, not because they branded themselves, but because their lives were in alignment. They didn't need to sell you a candle to prove that they had power. You felt it when they spoke your name. You saw it when the fever broke, when that baby lived, when somebody was delivered a birth. The mother and the child are healthy, because childbirth back then was not easy. When that curse was lifted, the work was personal, spiritually led, and sacred around those times. And then we get into market takeover, where capitalism really fucked up hoodoo, in my opinion. It went from ancestral power to a consumer product. That's when a big shift in hoodoo really happened, as interest in hoodoo from other diasporic traditions grew, especially from outsiders, anthropologists, folklorists, and even white spiritualists. The tradition was slowly but steadily commodified. Books were written not for preservation but for profit. Products were made not from ashe but from assembly lines and machines. White-owned companies began producing hoodoo oils, Florida water. A lot of people don't know this, but Florida water was actually an antiseptic that slaves created from old oranges to heal wounds, because they couldn't get health care. They couldn't go to the doctor. And they done turned it into a perfume with a bunch of fucking chemicals in it. Really stripping the work of its ritual, its intimacy, and its spiritual origin. What was once made by a root worker's hands with prayer and attention became a mass manufactured and marketed like cosmetics. The language of hoodoo was lifted, branded, and sold without lineage. The image of mystical black conjure woman was romanticized, like when they started making those mammy-looking dolls and calling them Big Mama. Black community didn't do that. I know there are root workers now who make those dolls and they actually have Big Mama soul in them, but that actual image, that mammy figure, was created by white people trying to sell to black people. My bad, I just got mad. Every time I talk about this shit, I get mad and I get off the subject. Where was I? Okay, and even worse, the tradition became flooded with misinformation. And this is from Wicca, New Age, spiritualists, making up rules that never fucking existed, making up rituals that never fucking existed, and other unrelated systems were falsely labeled as hoodoo, and they're still being labeled as hoodoo today, all in the name of profit. Literally, just to make money. Ruined a tradition that was built on blood for money. This is what I call capitalism hoodoo. But if you know who Catherine Hazard Donald is, she named it marketeered hoodoo. That's where that name comes from. It comes from her. If you want to learn the true history about what happened back then, I suggest that you buy this book. She even talks about how pharmacists used to go to hoodoo practitioners, basically steal their recipes, and then later on those recipes, they took the plants, modified them chemically, and that's how we have prescription medication today. She talks about that in this book too. Yes, it is a good book. So, we are in Marketeered Hoodoo. So, the shift from spirit to spectacle basically happened, from power to performance, from spirit to money, from lineage to lifestyle. And this shift didn't just distort public perception of hoodoo, it created a spiritual crisis within the community itself, because now younger practitioners are measuring their power by how aesthetically pleasing their altars look on fucking TikTok, and how quickly they can sell out of their readings and their products. And they're wondering why the work doesn't move like it used to back then. And when we get to the modern impact that capitalism has on hoodoo, it has redefined what spiritual power actually looks like. And you see this when you hear these spiritualists going back and forth with each other, and they keep bringing up how much money they have. I'm not going to say the name, but the spiritualist that I had a run-in with, basically the whole time was arguing with me, was telling me how she owns her own house, how she got so much money, even had the audacity to say that I was jealous of her. And I'm like, I literally live a life, a great life. I never want to be anybody else. Like, I am happy with who I am. But to actually think that that's an insult, to say that I'm more spiritually powerful because I own a house. Do you see how fucking crazy that sounds? But anyway, capitalism and hoodoo should not be in the same sentence. It's always been about how spirit is supposed to move through you. And many of the most powerful root workers in history were never known by name. They weren't brands. They were elders in backwoods cabins, especially in Arkansas. Like, I guarantee you, and the only reason y'all even know who I am is because I was called to teach. But in Arkansas, they don't tell you that they practice hoodoo. They are not on TikTok. If they are on TikTok, they're doing something that has absolutely nothing to do with their spirituality. They were in city kitchens. They're in graveyards, praying, conjuring, and protecting and healing people in silence. Literally have to hear from them from word of mouth. Most of the hoodoo practitioners, elders specifically, that I have encountered in Arkansas, the only reason I know about them is because one of my clients would come in and say that they went to this person for something else. And I was like, oh, okay, I've never heard of them. Where are they? And I find out that there are hundreds of root workers and elders in hoodoo in Arkansas that I didn't even know about. And then most of the time you have to go to their house. And one of them in particular, she is so hidden that you can't even find her house with a GPS. You have to have very specific instructions to find her. And it took me like maybe 45 minutes to get to her house, and it should have took me 15. So that's how hidden they are here in Arkansas. What we're seeing now is a generation trying to perform power without understanding its price. Spiritual authority is not built in a day. It's built through connection, obedience, struggle, and consistency. But capitalism tells us we can just skip that. Just buy a candle. Go buy a candle with a picture on it. Post that ritual even though it's not done. It haven't even hit yet. But what happens when the lights go off? When spirit stops speaking to you because you're focused on the money? You're actually giving away your gifts. When a client's life is in your hands and no amount of marketing is going to save them, no amount of money that you have is going to save them if you don't know what the fuck you're doing. We're going to have to return to spirit-filled hands, what we call hoodoo hands in hoodoo. mixing oils with intentions, prayer worn hands that stir pots while singing ancestral songs, because we've lost a lot of these songs that our ancestors created as spells. Does anybody have any questions? Keep in mind that when you ask about hoodoo, there's some things I'm not going to be able to answer. Oh, thank you, Zay. Okay. So we're going to get into the biblical case study. And you know, every time when I talk about what happened to hoodoo and I get mad, I don't even think it's me. I feel like it's the ancestors of hoodoo. Because when I tell you my whole entire face starts getting hot when I talk about this shit. Woo. So, oh, thank y'all, Melly. So, oh, thank y'all, Melly. So, the fact that we are being deeply conditioned to believe that money equates to spiritual power or material success is really fucked up if you really think about it. We as a people, before we got here, that's not how we thought. Our community and our people actually meant something to us back then. But you actually have black people scamming black people now. Like, you're scamming your own community. Even in spiritual spaces, this idea has crept in. The more you manifest, the more powerful you must be. The abundance is the award for alignment. The wealth is the visibility of favor. But if you really open your Bible, for those of you who do read the Bible, like I said, I teach all different religions, so if you don't like hearing about the Bible, you can come back in about, let me see how many pages is this. I'll come back in about 20 minutes, maybe 15. And I mean, go beyond the prosperity sermons that they be preaching in social media sound bites, and actually look at what the Bible is actually saying and read it in the way that it was intended to be read in the first place. You'll see a pattern that completely disrupts that type of thinking. Scripture consistently shows that the most powerful, spirit-filled individuals were not chosen because of their status, their wealth, or their aesthetics. They were chosen in lack, in wilderness, in weakness, in struggle. Because what God was doing through them could not be. They were chosen in lack, in wilderness, in weakness, in struggle. Because what God was doing through them could not be confused with the world, with what the world calls success. Tongue-tied. And that is a message every spiritualist and practitioner should hear. And I want to start with Jesus, born in a manger, not in a mansion, the son of a poor, unmarried girl, a man who had no home, no wealth, and no political standing whatsoever, and yet moved with so much divine power that demons fled at his word. Storms obeyed his voice, and healing poured from his garments. Jesus is the blueprint for what it means. And when I talk about Jesus, I'm specifically talking about Christ consciousness. I don't look at Jesus as the Son of God. I look at him as a man who had unlocked what it truly means to be connected to Source. His entire ministry was a radical contradiction of the empire that he ended up going against. He did not climb a ladder. He actually flipped over tables. And this is why Jesus is so central to Black liberation theology. For those of you who do study Black liberation theology, and I showed y'all this book yesterday. If you are Black, buy this book. I know it's expensive, but you need to get it. Um, because his poverty wasn't accidental, it was actually prophetic. He aligned, it aligned him with the oppressed people that he was actually helping, the outcast, the marginalized. He didn't come to perform for success. He came to embody power in its raw revolutionary form. And he actually told you to find God within yourself, telling you that you can perform the same works that he is performing. And when he was talking about performing works, he's talking about in presence, not in actual performance. Divinity, not decoration. Oh yeah, you can see it again. Got it. Let me know if you got it. Hidden Gems. This book is heavy as hell. If you can see how thick it is, it's heavy. So, Luke 12:15, and I forgot to show y'all if you did download. We are on this page, and it has all the information that I'm going over right now. The blue, yes, thank you, Melly. Luke 12:15, and I always use the New International Version because I just don't like King James. Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in abundance of possessions. That one verse dismantles the entire idea that material gain is spiritual reward. It reminds us that life, and by extension of power, is not measured by what you have, but in who you are and what moves through you. And Jesus wasn't the only one, and we'll get to Moses. He was called after the palace, not in it. He got his calling after he left the palace. God waited until Moses had been exiled, stripped of royal privilege, tending sheep in the desert. That's when the burning bush showed up. Exodus doesn't tell us God appeared when Moses was comfortable. It says God appeared when Moses was humble enough to listen. That's not a coincidence. Most of us don't even receive lessons until we're at our last. And we're like, damn, what are you trying to show me? That's when you actually start listening. Spirit often speaks clearest when status has been stripped away, unfortunately, because humans have ego. But when that ego is gone, when there's no performance left to hide behind because you've been stripped of everything, that's when God, or whatever you believe in, starts to really talk to you. Because in that place, all you have left is your beliefs. And then there's David. I didn't put him up there. Damn. But the youngest and the most overlooked person was David. The one left in the fields with the sheep while everybody else was being considered. But in 1 Samuel 16, God tells Samuel that man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. David's anointing came before his throne, before his wealth, before his fame. His spiritual authority was confirmed in the field, not the palace. And that is a direct rebuke to the way we choose leaders today. We choose leaders today by how charismatic they are. How the hell y'all think, and Trump is not even charismatic, but he has social standing, and he has power, and he has money. There's no way a man that lacks so much intelligence should even be at the head, right now. But anyway, in the kingdom, power is not about your crown, it's about your covering. And then when we get to Job, his entire testimony hinges on loss. Everything was taken from him. His wealth, his family, his health, and still his faith remained. Job 2:10. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? Shall we accept good from God but not the trouble? That is like the realest scripture ever. And it's really the realest test of spiritual maturity. Can you remain rooted when the blessings dry up? That's what that's asking you. Can you still believe when you have nothing to show for it? Job's story shows us that real power is proven in the storm, not after it. And it's not that Job never struggled, it's that he struggled and still stayed grounded. And then Paul is another layer. This was a man who wrote some of the most powerful spiritual teachings in the scripture. And I did a whole class on Paul's teachings a couple of months ago, if y'all remember that class. When I was talking about Ephesians 6, he is the one who came up with the armor of God, which is great. If y'all ever going through something and somebody's throwing something at you, go to Ephesians 6 and read that and implement what Paul is saying. But anyway, most of his teachings were actually written in jail. He did it broke, imprisoned, and persecuted. In 2 Corinthians 12:9, Paul says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Read that again. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Power is made perfect in weakness. Not in status, not in riches, not in likes, not in followers, in weakness. That flips the whole capitalist narrative upside down. Spirit doesn't need you to be successful to move. It needs you to be surrendered. And then James 2:5 takes it even further. Has not God chosen those who are poor in the eyes of the world to be rich in faith? That verse could live on a protest sign. That's a whole theology, that one verse. And in Ephesians 4:12 through 13, Paul also says, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. That's the essence of spiritual authority. The ability to endure and move and work through any condition, because your strength isn't external, it's internal, it's divine, it's anchored in something higher than your circumstances. So what does that actually mean for you as a practitioner? Like, throw the Bible away. You as a practitioner of any faith, what does that mean for you? It means that struggle does not disqualify you. Your lack does not mean that you're out of alignment. Your power is not measured by how quickly your blessings arrive to you. It is measured by your relationship with Spirit, or whatever you believe in, by your obedience, your presence, and your willingness to be used even when you feel broken. That is the power of survival. And that's how you build legacy as well, especially for your ancestors. That's how you heal your bloodline. That is the spirit of the gospel, not success for success. Not success for success sake. Say that 3 times. But liberation through presence, through love, through truth. In a world that worships, and I mean worships, wealth and visibility, the biblical truth remains that spirit chooses differently. Spirit sees differently. The spiritual world don't work like the physical world work. And if Jesus, Moses, David, Job, Paul, our ancestors who had to survive slavery, all moved mountains while broken, exiled, overlooked, displaced, then so can you. Because power doesn't come from status, it comes from spirit. And that is my biblical case study. Anybody have any questions? You're welcome, Coach Steph. So I want to talk about the lie of material proof. And that is, for those of you who are following along, it's this page. Uh-oh. Thank you. Thank y'all so much. You're welcome. Thank you. So capitalism teaches performance, spirit teaches presence. We're living in a time where capitalism has become more than an economic system. It has become a religion. I'm not going to use that pink again because you can barely see it. Pink again because you can barely see it. A full-blown belief system, to be honest with you, one with its own gods, its own rituals, and its own doctrines. It teaches that money is salvation, productivity is piety, and success is sanctification. Instead of altars, we have algorithms. Instead of offerings, we have influencer culture. And instead of measuring someone's spirit, we are measuring their status. This isn't just harmful, it's theological violence to me. Because capitalism doesn't just steal our land and labor, it stole the meaning of what it really means to live in spirit, to be connected. It told us that worth is tied to wealth, and that and then it infiltrated spiritual spaces to make sure that we believe God, the universe, the ancestors, whatever you pray to, or believe in, or whatever you call source, only favors the rich. This is why we must confront the lie of material proof. Because under this new religion of capitalism, to be poor is to be cursed. To be struggling is to be spiritually weak. Do y'all see how the world is changing the meanings of everything? And we're witnessing it. And to not have something is not to be out of alignment. People are no longer worshiping spirit, they're worshiping results. They are chasing manifestations instead of maturity. And they're calling it divine. They're telling people, I'm the chosen one. Look how much money I got. But there is nothing divine about a system that measures your ashe by what you can acquire. That's not spirit. As I said before, that is hustle culture, wrapped in sage and scripture with beads hanging around its neck. Think about how this shows up in modern spiritual spaces now. If someone is highly visible, they're assumed to be anointed, they're assumed to be intelligent, they're assumed to be initiated, even when they're not. If they post pictures of their beautiful altar, we are assumed that they're powerful just because their altar is pretty. If they sell out on products, we think they're favored because they sold their products. But what we're really witnessing is the algorithm of capitalism masquerading as spiritual success. This is not about alignment, it's about optics. And if we're not careful, we'll start measuring our spiritual progress by how profitable we look. This is the danger. Capitalism replaces spiritual power with performance. I keep saying that. That's my third time saying that particular sentence. Then tells us that it's proof. It turns connection into content. It turns prayer into branding. It turns rituals into reels. And when you don't look the part, when you're tired, grieving, and in lack, or just quiet, they start whispering behind your back. They start making fun of you, making you feel less than, making you feel like spirit has left you, that your ashe is not working. But that's not spirit talking. That's capitalism preaching a gospel, posting altars for the world to see. Yes, the only people who should be really posting altars are people who educate other people. And certain altars, like, because certain spirits, I do want to say this, certain spirits do require public acknowledgement. So if a spirit did something for you, and that particular spirit loves public acknowledgement, you will post the altar or publicly thank them. But you don't tell people what working that they gave you or what they did for you, of course. But sometimes people do post their altar because that spirit requires it, or people post their altars because they are teachers. They are meant to teach others. But posting your altar just for the hell of it, to show how pretty it is, especially when we live in the but posting your altar just for the hell of it, to show how pretty it is, especially when we live in the world that we live today. Do you know that there are spiritualists out there? And the reason I know this is because I know somebody who does this. I told y'all this story before. I'm not friends with her or nothing like that, but she was bragging about how when young practitioners post their altars and stuff on there, she purposely fucks with it, just for the hell of it. I'll give you an example. Somebody had posted their ancestor altar one time, and she was and I'm never in this girl's presence anymore, but she used to be at meetings, I'll just say that. But she's no longer at these meetings. But she was talking about how the girl was bragging about how her ancestors were so powerful because she had bought a house, got approved for the house, moved in and all of that, posted her ancestor altar thanking them because she said that she had did a working with her ancestors. So what this practitioner did maliciously, had no reason to fucking do this, she took the girl's ancestors' pictures and began feeding her ancestors. And the reason she did this is because when you feed spirits and they get more attention from someone else than you, let's say this girl fell off and she was a practitioner that only venerates her ancestors when she wants something. If the ancestors are being fed somewhere else, and I'm telling y'all a secret that how many people on here? Okay, it's only 43 people on here. Somebody can take your ancestors, feed them, treat them better than you can because you're not living spiritually right, and they can take your ancestors, and then you are at your ancestor altar and you're wondering why your candles are burning black, why your water no longer has bubbles, or there's no activity, because they can be present without the bubbles, but they're not active, because your altar is dead, because your ancestors have left your altar and went to somebody else's. And she bragged about doing this shit. Keep in mind, practitioners who do this, they continue to watch you. And I think it was like a year later, she said, the girl ended up losing that house, ended up moving back in with her mom. Like, there are people out there who do cruel ass shit like that. Yeah, you can get them back. But when you're working with a practitioner as powerful as the girl, like I told you, people can have spiritual power and be in alignment with spirit and have horrible morals based on what we think moral standards should be. But as powerful as the girl I'm talking about is, it's probably going to be hard, because the girl who posted her altar, she was young. She showed me a picture of her. She had to be like 19, 20, maybe 23 at the highest, because you know black people always look like teenagers when they're in their 20s. But always look like teenagers when they're in their 20s. But it's probably going to be hard for her to get them back. But you have to be aware that there are practitioners out there who do shit just for the fun of it. So you have to be careful. You have to protect your work. If you do post your altar, especially if it's showing your ancestors' faces, please go to CapCut, go to Canva, put up some type of protection ward on the picture and make it invisible. Like turn the what do you call it? what's that tool that makes things translucent? I forgot what the tool is called. Make it translucent and then post the picture with the protection already on it. I did a class about how to protect yourself in the new digital age. That's the best way. Every single video I post has protection on them. Every last one of them. So you have to be proactive. And I done got off subject. We're supposed to be learning about spiritual power, but I just wanted you to know, because my little sister was saying she doesn't know why people be posting their altars. She's 100% right. If you are not a teacher, or you're not an elder, or you're not saying thank you to a spirit who likes public recognition, you should not be posting your altars. Because of people like that. I almost called her the B word. I forgot I was on live. People like that girl exist. Y'all remember where I was? Hold on. And this is why I have outlines for every class, because I'll go on a tangent. I was basically talking about the lies of material proof. And spirit is not measured with in assets. It's measured in alignment, basically. And alignment is not always visible. If I post my altar, it's buried. Oh yeah, you can do that too. You can use the blur tool as well. Where was I? Sometimes the one carrying the most power is the one that's sleeping on the floor or on the air mattress. People like to make fun of people for having air mattresses or struggling. I never understood why people do shit like that. Because that could be you real fast. So the most powerful people can be the ones sleeping on the floor, praying over a cracked altar with nothing but a glass of water on it, and still spirit will always show up for them. That's what real abundance, spiritual abundance actually looks like, because it doesn't come from capitalism's God that they're creating and feeding. It comes from a place that can't be bought, branded, or sold. Our ancestors knew this. Enslaved, stripped of everything, forbidden to read, of all things, owned by another human being, or even named, stripped of their names themselves. They still worked miracles. They still called down on power. They still fought against their oppressor. They still won rebellions, especially the ones that were suppressed. They still dreamed, conjured, healed, prayed, and walked with spirit. They had no wealth by empire standards, but they were overflowing with power, and they didn't need materials to prove it. They were the proof. I remember an elder told me at one point, an African from those days could open up their mouth and speak, and the person would drop dead. Oh, I can't say that on live. The person will be unalived. That's what type of power our ancestors held while in chains. So why now do we think that we need designer altars to be heard? Why do we think that manifestation is only real if it comes with money? Why do we see someone struggling and assume that they must not be doing work? That's not discernment, that's indoctrination. And if we don't call it what it is, we'll keep mistaking empire logic for divine law. Lack does not mean you lack spiritual power. Struggle is not evidence of failure, and wealth is not confirmation of you being anointed. Sometimes spirit withholds to protect you. Sometimes your ancestors will delay what they want to give you. Sometimes your wilderness is the blessing. It's where your character is redefined, or refined, more to say, where your ashe is deepened, where your spiritual authority is actually born. Spiritual power was never meant to look like status. It was meant to become alignment. And that alignment is felt how you move, how you listen, how you remain rooted in everything around you. That's how you shake shit up. That's how you show your true abundance, your real blessings. And it cannot be mass produced. Spiritual power cannot be mass produced. It cannot be produced with machines. Only the hands of the practitioner. So no, the truth is not in your following count. It's not in your bank account. It's not in how fast you sell. It's not how aesthetically pleasing you look or your all. That's how you know you're in flow. We're living in a time where capitalism is more than an economic system. Like I said, it's a full-blown belief system now. So somebody asked me earlier in class, how do you know that you're in alignment? I saw that question, but I didn't get to answer it because I knew I was going to get to it in section 7. And the person who asked that question, if you're still in here, I actually made a chart to show you. And it gives you information on that question. Actually, this is actually the last section and the class is done. And if y'all want me to show y'all some more books, I will. So, what does real power feel like? The first thing is calm command. And this is what I told y'all when you walk in a room and people feel and see your real power. One of the clearest signs that someone is walking in their authority is their ability to bring calm to chaos. They don't flinch when things go left. They don't overtalk you to compete for attention. They just speak, and when they do, the atmosphere shifts. Think about your big mama or an elder you knew when you were growing up. The one, and I'm talking about the ones that didn't raise their voice unless they had to. But when they said something, everybody shut the fuck up. That is what calm command is. That's when power is actually rooted in presence. And then, as always, I like to give y'all real world examples just in case you don't get my analogies. So let's say you're in a heated room. And when I say heated, there's an argument going on. Yes, little mama, my grandmother, the one that cussed like a sailor. Yeah, she was hell on wheels. You're right, Pookie. We called our grandmother Little Mama. Oh, it wasn't Big Mama. And then grandfather was Big Daddy. So anyway, you're in a heated room. An argument is escalating. And one person just says enough. And the whole room shuts up. That is spiritual authority. Not loudness, not aggression, but actual command. A second thing is ancestral presence. This is when your ancestors show up. You might feel chills, hear ringing in your ears, or feel an unmistakable sensation that somebody else just entered the room. That's presence. So I have been saying presence this whole time. When I say presence, I'm talking about your spirits they come in 10, 20 deep with you, and people feel them in the room. That's what I mean by presence. People not only feel your spiritual power, but your whole entire spirit team. That's evidence that spirit walks with you. And it doesn't only happen in rituals. It shows up when you speak truth, when you pray, when you comfort somebody, when you declare something with conviction, and your spirit moves behind you. A real world example of this is like you're telling a story or saying a prayer for somebody and they just burst out of tears out of nowhere. Not because you're trying to be deep, but because something bigger came through you and went through them. And then there's clarity and discernment. Power often looks like knowing exactly what to say, when to say it, even though you don't know where that came from. I talked about that yesterday. It feels like being clear even when others are confused. It shows up as spiritual insight that cuts through the noise, the lies, the masks. It's that gut feeling that tells you don't insight that cuts through the noise, the lies, the masks. It's that gut feeling that tells you don't trust this person. Intuition, basically. Don't go this way, and you later find out that you were right. A real world example is you get a feeling not to take a certain route home, you listen, even though it doesn't make sense to you, and later you hear about an accident or a situation on the road that you avoided. That's not a coincidence. That is clarity of spirit. People who actually carry real spiritual authority, that happens to them a lot. It comes from being spiritually aligned. And then when we get to synchronicities and alignment, when you're walking in real power, your path starts to align so much so you be like, damn, I keep getting blessed every damn day. Every week something is happening. This shows up exactly when you need it. You say something and see the number pop up. Like I tell this story all the time. One time I had wanted some ice cream, went in Walmart, got all the shit I needed, went outside of Walmart, forgot my ice cream, and I ended up running into a client who bought the wrong ice cream, but it was the ice cream I was looking for. And I was like, girl, I was just about to buy that, and they gave it to me. And she was like, no, you ain't got to pay for it. Shit like that starts to happen. And my little sister can tell you, and really a lot of people that's in this live can tell you, I'm like one of the luckiest people ever. Like, I will go to Starbucks and the person in front of me will pay for my stuff. And you would think that this would happen like every now and then. This happens to me so much. So every time I go somewhere, I get something for free. My sister has been with me when this has happened, and I'll turn to her and I'll look and I said, I told you. So I always have money in my pocket because of things like that. I'm not wealthy though. I will never want y'all to think that I'm rich, because I'm not at all. But I have what I need because of alignment and synchronicities. So a real world example is this: you light a candle and say a prayer for clarity, and the next day 3 unrelated people tell you the same phrase. They tell you the same thing. That's not randomness. That's actually power guiding you to your steps. And then protection and interruption. One of the most overlooked signs of real spiritual power is protection. Sometimes your manifestations get blocked, but not because you're doing something wrong. I told y'all that earlier, but because spirit is actually intervening. You think that something bad is happening to you, but in reality, that bad thing is happening to you so you can receive a blessing. That job that you didn't get, that relationship that fell apart, that was actually opening up for a new relationship, a better job. A real world example: you felt rejected, but later you find out that the opportunity would have cost you your peace and put you in harm's way. Real power doesn't always give you what you want, it gives you what you need. Grace under fire. Real power shows up when things fall apart. When you're broke, hurting, or grieving, and somehow you still know who you are. You still keep praying. You still hold compassion for others. That's not weakness, that's strength of spirit. And it's one of the strongest signs that your ashe is rooted, not rented. A real world example: you're going through a personal storm, but people keep saying how peaceful you seem. People say that to me all the time. Why the fuck are you not flipping your shit right now? So and so just happened. I'd be like, because I know, I just know it's not the end of the world. I got arrested one time, and my boyfriend at the time was like cussing up a storm because the police officer could have let me go. He didn't have to arrest me. He could have let me go, and I was calm as hell. I was like, it's okay. Do you know, by the time I made it to the jail, I was already bailed out. I probably stayed in jail for like 5 minutes. because I don't worry about shit like that. Don't worry about things that you can't control. I promise you it's gonna work out. And no, I'm not telling y'all why I got arrested, but he could have let me go. Just know that. Where was I? But he could have let me go. Just know that. Where was I? Did I give y'all the real world example for that? Oh, no, I didn't. So, real world example. You're going through a personal storm, but people keep saying how peaceful you seem. Oh, I did give y'all that one. And I gave y'all a personal example. Okay, cool. So now we're in power and poverty. Let's say it clearly. You can be broken in money and still be rich in spirit. That's the name of this class, rich in spirit. Our enslaved ancestors had no wealth. They had unmatched power, though. They healed with dirt. Literally could heal you with dirt. Do y'all know how powerful that is? They prayed and shit moved. They read the wind and knew when shit was gonna hit the fan. That same current runs through you. A real world example is you don't have any money for a candle, so you just pray and it still hits without burning anything. Your words was enough, and it always is enough, by the way. Your energy still clears the space. That power doesn't rely on products. That's ancestral power. So that's actually the end of the class.